of work it should be getting on and doing. And of course it isn't. So for us, there are all manner of things that we believe in. Some of this, the problems that we have with social injustice, the benefits system, the lack of social mobility, making sure that, notwithstanding if we do leave the European Union in the way that it looks like we might, that we actually try somehow to restore our economy. There's a huge job of work to be done. We've got to be looking at the causes of Brexit and indeed healing our country. Things that this government is simply not doing, and it can't do it. It's incapable of doing it. Had 2.5 years to do it. You know, we've had 2.5 years to get the promised trade deal, and we still haven't got it. And what will happen if we leave at the end of March on Mrs May's agreement is there will be more rows, more uncertainty as we try and sort out what sort of Brexit we want. And that is bad for Britain, bad for British people, bad for business. And the only way through it all is to get it back to the British people. Have that second referendum, a people's vote. Let the people decide. Let them take the next stage forward.
Okay, Anna Soubry, thank you very much indeed. So everyone really waiting to see in the coming months how much influence this group of MPs of, at the moment, just 11, can have on politics.
Vicky Young, our chief political correspondent there. Thank you very much. Vicky there with Anna Soubry. Let's speak now to the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Vince Cable, who's at Westminster. Sir Vince, good afternoon to you. I suppose listening to that and some of the other things that have been said, you know, more in common than divides us. Let's bring an end to tribal politics. Time for realignment. This all sounds horribly familiar to you, doesn't it? It's the kind of stuff that people like you were saying in the Labour Party at the beginning of the 80s before you were a councillor then. I think you've been a special advisor in the Labour government before you went to help found the SDP. I mean, is it another full storm?
No, I don't think so. I think this is serious. I think the three women today from the Conservatives have been very courageous. I think it's very positive. I think the fact that the splits are happening on the Conservative side as well as the Labour side is very good. I think it bodes well for British politics. I feel encouraged that we now have potential allies in the centre ground of politics, and I look forward to working with them in Parliament and outside.
There are more of them than there are of you now as Liberal Democrat MPs. I mean, it might raise the question of who should be working with whom.
Well, I think there's 11 of each, but you know, that may change. But, you know, Anna Soubry said, you know, she wants us to sit with them and work with them, and I look forward to doing just that.
Trouble is, it's the sustainability of that, isn't it? I mean, this was the problem the SDP had in the early 80s, that, you know, the SDP sat with the Liberals, they then operated together. I mean, this is all speculative whether this would ever happen now, but the reality was that the political system, particularly the electoral system, defeated attempts to have multi-parties, at least in the English part of the UK. Is there not a danger they'll find exactly that this time around?
Well, I think where you're absolutely right is that it would be foolish for my party and this independent group to fight with each other and compete with each other in elections. The first past the post system means that, you know, we would damage each other very badly. It would be a foolish thing to do. So we have to cooperate. There is a lot in common in terms of values. Anna reminded us that we'd worked together in the coalition, and it was a very good relationship. We totally share their views about Brexit. Indeed, it's very important that we remember that the Brexit issues are not resolved, and next week and in the coming weeks we're going to have to work with them and others to make sure that the damage that Brexit could do is stopped.
There is a danger, I suppose, always with this process that when people leave, other people who are trying to influence their party from within find their position weakened. Do you think there's a risk that what will happen will actually polarise the bigger parties further and actually make compromise and agreement on things, big national issues like Brexit, much harder to achieve?
Well, there is a risk of that, but as Anna and her colleagues pointed out, the Conservative Party is now being taken over by militants, by, you know, UKIP people essentially. The polarisation is taking place at the grassroots, and I fully understand why MPs, whose position is becoming impossible, have decided to break away. It's a very understandable political response. I wasn't an MP actually in the early 80s, but I did respect those people in the Labour Party who did that move, and I think it was the right thing to do. But we're in a very different situation now. It's a different world. You know, the whole concept of Brexit didn't exist when the SDP Liberal move took place, and we've got to deal with the world as it is.
It's a dilemma for Liberal Democrats, though, isn't it? Because in a sense, for many years, you were the party that people went to when they felt angry and disaffected what the two bigger UK parties were doing, Labour and the Conservatives. And under the late Paddy Ashdown, you were very successful in kind of motivating that and building on that, and then got big electoral strength yourself. Is there a danger now this will completely eclipse you?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think that, you know, we've come at this from a different direction. We've had two difficult general elections. As you know, we were in the coalition government. It's created a different history. But the simple truth is we've got two groups now. You know, ours an established political party with 100,000 members, you know, roughly 2,000 councillors, a big infrastructure, a local organisation, and we've got another group which shares many of our values, which has common objectives. I think it requires goodwill and common sense to work together, and I'm sure we will.
But no infrastructure, and in a sense, that's the problem for them, isn't it? They don't have they have one thing in common very powerfully. I think I'm right saying all of them, and that's Brexit. But there's nothing else. And in a sense, once we get beyond the immediate electoral decisions on Brexit, they may find, as other groups of this kind of found before, that once they start trying to establish party positions, they start falling out with each other.
Well, that's an issue they've got to face within their group, but I think that underlines the case for them working with us. And I have a completely open, positive approach to that. I very much welcome them. I think there's a complementarity of interests. That we shouldn't be competitive, and I think it will be very healthy for British politics if we manage to make a success of what's happening at the moment.
And if you operate together, presumably that could, in the coming weeks and months at Westminster, leaving aside elections, have some impact on the dynamic there.
I think it could. I mean, we're at the moment, in Westminster terms, the fourth party, which is a ridiculous situation. They are now emerging as a substantial group. I mean, together we are a much bigger force at Westminster, and that's what we're going to be working to achieve.
Vince Cable. So Vince Cable, leader of the Liberal Democrats, thanks very much for joining us on this fascinating afternoon for British politics. You're watching Afternoon Live with me, Sean Lay, and these are our headlines. More defections over Brexit. This time Conservative MPs leave their party, accusing it of moving to the right. Joan Ryan has become the 8th former Labour MP to join the new independent group in Parliament. In other news, the family of the UK teenager who left to join Islamic State in Syria say they will challenge the government's decision to strip her of her British citizenship.
And in sport, Manchester City's pursuit of an historic quadruple takes them to Germany tonight for an awkward Champions League away leg against Schalke. The West Indies have won the toss and elected to bat in the